Welcome to the Veterans of the Cedar Valley program today. My name is Sid Morris, and with me today is Greg Saul. Greg served in Vietnam, and we welcome you to the program today. Before we get into your story, I'd like to just say talk for a little bit about this program. You are the first in this series of programs for veterans and veterans who have received medals of honor. And so I'd like to visit with you today and about your medals of honor. And also, let's start out with what service you were in, where you served, and tell us a little bit about your first experience in the military.
Sure. Well, first of all, Sid, thanks for having me on the program, and I want to say thank you for serving.
Right,
I served your country during the Korean War, and I have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
Basically, back in the 60s, late 69, the draft was going on, and I knew I was going to get drafted. I think my draft number was number 13, and back then they said, you're in the Army, you're in the Marines, you're in the Army, you're in the Marines. I thought, maybe I better get down to the Air Force recruiting office, because I hear the food's pretty good in the Air Force. So I enlisted in the Air Force, and they took me, and I scored high in the administrative field. So my job was inventory management specialist, actually supply. And anyway, June of 60, this is my basic training picture in San Antonio, Texas, in June of 1969. It was kind of hot down there in June of 69, and I'm in the upper left-hand corner. As you see there, pretty 150 pound. I think everybody's 150 pounds back in school, just out of high school. So I was in pretty good shape and pretty athletic. But June of 69, I believe it's a 9-week training course. And there's my drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Baldwin, and then there's the Sergeant Dooley, and they were pretty tough on you back then. I mean, you had they got in your face, and you just adapted to the military, and if you didn't, they sent people back for another 9 weeks and see if they get it. But the military was a really good experience for every young man, even though people can get hurt and killed. I mean, that's part of war. Right. With the war going on. So I did my 9 weeks in Lackland, Texas, there at, in Lackland Air Force Base for 9 weeks. And then I went on to Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado for another 12 weeks to learn my skill as an inventory management specialist. And that's when the computers were first coming out. But there were those big mainframes. So anyway, then I got shipped off to Altus, Oklahoma. And I worked in the supply office there, basically issued all the tools for people on the airline, for the planes arriving and that. Also, the guys are on the fuel line, the military police, they needed jackets and boots and all that stuff. I was the guy that helped them. Then later on, in about August of 1970, I got my orders to go to Vietnam. Now, I volunteered for Vietnam, but you didn't know you were going to go. Right. And I had a cousin in Waterloo by the name of Ron Stein that was killed in the Vietnam War. So I was kind of edgy about that. It was kind of, it's like you want to go get them. It's like they killed your cousin, so it was a little bit of motivation there. But anyway, when you first go over there in the plane, that's a commercial plane, you start to walk off the plane, and you think you're going to be bullet zinging over your head, rockets flying in. It was like 4 in the morning, and it's like quiet. And he said, we haven't had a rocket attack here, these guys are telling me, for at least 3 weeks. And I'm going, whew, So I was in Benoit, Vietnam, is where I was stationed. And I was a supply man for the tactical squadron. So these jets that did airstrikes, we supported them. So if a part broke down, we'd get it from the Philippines or Hickam, Hawaii. So never went to a rocket attack. I was there probably for 2.5 months. And the sirens would go off just like you hear like the tornado sirens here. So when those go off, you think of the war. I mean, you probably experienced that too. Right. But anyway, on November 17th of 1970, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard an explosion. And I woke up. I was in a barracks. We're at a 2-story barracks. And the second rocket was a direct hit on my room and blew my room up. And I had a couple roommates. And with me, just kind of show you, this is, when you get hit with shrapnel, it looks like this. This is actual shrapnel from my room, and that's another story where I ran into the guy who had it 3 months later in Omaha, and I'll tell you that story someday.
I've seen things like that before.
Very sharp, just like a bullet, just pure lead that scatters everywhere.
Right.
Same thing in a bomb. So when you hear people getting hit by shrapnel, it's chunks of steel. This is the actual rocket head from a 107 millimeter Chinese rocket that blew my room up. It was a head, and the sergeant in my barracks retrieved this. And so that's kind of interesting to actually have this kind of stuff. But Air Force guys aren't supposed to get hit, but believe me, if you're in a war zone,
you're in a war zone.
You're in a war zone.
Right.
So when they do rocket attacks on the base to try and get personnel and airplanes, happen to be the casualty. So anyway, the room was exploded. They blew it out above my head, like a 2-story, and I was sleeping on the top bunk. Used to sleep on the top bunk. Guy got transferred out, moved to the bottom bunk. The top bunk was totally riddled, like somebody took a machine gun to it, tore it apart. My lockers and with all my stuff looked like somebody took a machine gun to it with all the shrapnel holes. I have pictures somewhere at home of that. But anyway, it was all dark. I could taste the steel and the gun smoke in my mouth from the explosion. And crawled out in the hallway, and lights were flickering on and off because the power, because of this rocket attack, is going on and off. And 2 of my buddies in there grabbed me and took me down to what they call the bathroom. We call it latrine in the military, but it was a bathroom. And all I had was on was my shorts, and there's so much blood, they put tourniquet on both legs. Now this leg didn't have a scratch on it. Well, what had happened is on my right leg, the artery was severed, and blood goes pretty fluently when an artery is severed. And so they put tourniquet on my leg, put me in the back of a Air Force pickup truck, and drove me down to the dispensary. And he said to me right there, and he says, his name is Kerrigan, he says, "You got the $1 million wound." And I'm going like, what is he talking about? Apparently I was in shock, but I didn't know it. I guess people, when they're, and you don't see anything. It's just a mechanism I think your body has in war. Those kind of things, when they get hurt, they don't see the injury itself. And so I'm in this dispensary where all the wounded are coming in. And a lot of guys got hurt trying to get to the bunker. They trip and fall down the stairs and break legs and stuff like that, like they would any place else. But they also would get hit outside going to the bunker. The barracks next to me, because of my rocket that blew my room up, went and hit in the middle between 2 barracks, drove buckets of feathers into their shoulders because they're sleeping in bed, and just drove feathers in the pillows. So they'd said they had to take a jar full of feathers out of these guys' shoulders that were sleeping in the barrack next door to me. Anyway, back to my story is where I'm at the dispensary. They stabilize me, give me a shot, and they put me in the back of a MASH ambulance with 2 guys with M16s, and I have to drive me to Long Binh Army Base, which was, I don't know, maybe 10 miles away, where they had the Army hospital. And just like you see in the MASH thing, they drove me in, and the doors opened up, and they put me in there, and they asked me my name, the serial number. I gave it to them, and he said, "We're going to put an IV in you." Put the IV in me, and blood just flew everywhere. And I'm going, "Oh man, more blood!" I mean, that's the blood I'd seen. I didn't see the ones on my legs. And he said, "Oh, you'll be all right. We'll take care of you." I woke up 3 days later, and I I seen the medals laying by me. So the commander is Colonel Curley, you know, they visit their troops, and apparently they gave me the medals while I was asleep, and you kind of see that back. General Patton. On the left is the Bronze Star for meritorious service, or it can be for heroic. Mine is meritorious. And then the Purple Heart is what veterans get from George Washington, the purple one, for receiving wounds in action. And that was for the leg injury. So what they did is they did an artery transplant on me, which is kind of something they got in the Korean War, where what they do is they take a vein out of your groin and put it in place of your artery, and either your body accepts it or rejects it. If it rejects it, they chop your leg off. If your body accepts it, life will go on.
And yours accepted.
And accepted it, and which was kind of wild about the injury. I was in the Army hospital, and when I woke up, I had wires in my leg from here all the way up through here. And I thought, why is that like that? He says, well, we didn't want you to get gangrene infection, so they left the wound open. They closed the wound in that barracks without any anesthetic, because they didn't want to put me under again because I was out 3 days the last time. They wanted to take a risk of me not recovering. So I recovered from that, but I had to put my leg in a cast at a 45-degree angle like this for 6 weeks. Then when the cast came off, I had to straighten my leg out. That was on physical therapy, or they call it physical torture back then. So that was my recovery. But from that, I also had the peroneal nerve was severed in my right leg along with that artery, which controls your foot. So I have a foot drop. I can push down, but I can't lift it up. So that was an injury. So how I maneuver through life is I just wear a higher top shoe to try and lock my ankle so it keeps me from stumbling in that. But I still have a lot of cramps all the time and stuff because it's never going to go away. And they said, don't do any prolonged standing. Well, what I do for a living is prolonged standing a lot of times, so I'm doing the opposite of what they said. But what they did with me, and I went shipped after Vietnam. I was there 2 weeks, next to a bunch of guys that got shot and plane crashes and burns and that. Then they shipped me out to Japan, and I was in an intensive care where guys were. I seen a kid there that had lost both arms and legs over there, and his mom was over there with him. So I've seen that myself, and what a tough situation is. And I know with Taylor, tremendous recovery compared to what they did back then. What they didn't have the technology.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was the fact that they had the medals right there when you came to.
Well,
that is very unusual.
Well, if you remember even the Patton movie, he would have done that. But this Colonel Curley, because he wanted to see how I was a squadron of 40 people, so it wasn't a big squadron. We were detached from out of Saigon. He had stopped by to see how I was doing. Of course, I was out. I don't know if they call it a mini coma or whatever your body goes into, but 3 days is not normal for a person not to wake up. So they gave the medals right there by my bed in the box, and they said he had stopped by. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Well, that is very. We have a couple minutes left. The time has gone very fast.
Sure.
But that's quite a story. I've known you, and I've known your father, known your family all these years. I had never heard this story, and I'm impressed.
Well, you know, and there's no regrets. It was just part of life, and I wanted to serve my country, and I admire anybody that goes into the military and serves their country. It's the right thing to do. So.
Well, yes, it is, and I want to thank you for your service, and I'm very happy to have an opportunity to hear your story because I've known you for so long, and you're an old Cedar Falls guy.
Yeah, I am. Go back 175 years of family.
And but anyway, this is what we want to do in future programming, and we're looking for veterans who have experienced the same kind of thing you have by receiving honor medals, and we appreciate you coming today and and telling us your story.
Well, thank you.
You betcha.
And thank you for serving.
Well, thank you. A few years ahead of you, but when I saw the machine guns and various things and these, they look very familiar,
Yeah.
especially shrapnel. I want to thank you again. Our time is up, and thank you very much
Thanks for
your
having me.
story. You bet.
All right.
We'll be back with another story later this, hopefully this next month, on another veteran who has received honor medals from the Cedar Valley, Veterans of Cedar Valley. Thank you.